Nothing ever truly disappears until it has taught us what we were meant to learn. I didn't understand those words when I was a child. I doubt most 6-year-olds spend their days pondering fate or whether tragedy has a purpose. But for me, the questions began early. Because of something that happened when I was still small enough to cling to my mother's hand and still young enough to believe school was the scariest place in the world. I grew up in Ohio, in a quiet suburb where the houses lined up neatly along tree-lined streets and families waved politely at each other while mowing their lawns. My father worked in insurance. My mother stayed home to care for me. And together they gave me the kind of warm childhood most people might call ordinary. But ordinary ended the first year I started school. On that first day, I was terrified. I remember clutching my mother's arm so tightly her skin turned pale. I didn't want to leave the safe little world of home. She smiled gently, telling me I'd make friends, that I'd see school wasn't so frightening. But in my head I kept asking, why would I need new friends when I had her? It turned out she was right. Because that day I met a girl who changed everything. Her name was Clara. She was shorter than me, with pale blonde hair that caught the light and eyes so green they almost glowed. I was sitting alone at lunch, unwrapping the sandwich Mom had packed, when she plopped down across from me. My mom puts pickles in mine too, she said with a little grin. They're gross, aren't they? I blinked, thinking maybe she was teasing me. But then she laughed. And it wasn't cruel. It was kind. Real. By the end of that lunch break, I knew her favorite color, blue. Her favorite animal, squirrels. And that somehow, this strange new world wasn't so bad as long as she was in it. From then on, we were inseparable. We sat together in class, whispered about the other kids, and after school we ran through the woods that stretched out behind our neighborhood. Our parents didn't mind as long as we stayed close to home. And though we loved to imagine we were explorers, knights, and adventurers, we never went farther than we should. Except for one obsession. Behind the school, if you looked carefully from the outside, you could see a tall brick wall shielding a large hidden space. Inside the building, there seemed to be no way into that area. No windows. No stairwell. Nothing. Just one heavy steel door set into the back wall of the hallway. Always locked. Clara and I spun stories about what might be behind it. A dragon's nest. A portal to another world. A place where the teachers hid all the secrets kids weren't supposed to know. Sometimes we scared each other with ghost tales. Other times we laughed about treasure chests and castles. But no matter what, the door was always there, silent, sealed, and waiting. Eventually we moved on to other games. But the image of that door never fully left my mind. 6 months into the school year, something unusual happened. Our regular teacher had fallen ill, and we were told a substitute would take her place until she recovered. Most of the kids cheered at the idea of a new adult to test boundaries with. But I felt nervous. I'd grown used to our teacher's steady presence. What if the new one was mean? That morning, my mother dropped me and Clara off a little later than usual. We ran toward the front doors, laughing, racing each other like we always did. Clara reached the doors first, but when she pushed, she bounced back as though she'd slammed into a wall. Locked. That had never happened before. We both shoved against the handles, but nothing budged. Confusion prickled at my skin. Why would the school lock its doors when classes were starting? And then, a voice. Going somewhere? It was a man's voice. Deep. Confident. Carrying a tone that made the hair rise on the back of my neck. We turned. A tall man stood a few feet away, dressed head to toe in black. Long coat, dark slacks, polished shoes, and a fedora tilted just enough to shadow part of his face. But not his eyes. His eyes were pale blue, icy and piercing, like the color of a frozen lake. He looked to be in his 40s, handsome in a sharp, unsettling way, and he was smiling. "I'm your substitute," he said. "My name is Mr. Harlow." I frowned. Something about his calmness unsettled me more than if he'd shouted. Clara stiffened beside me. "How do you know my name?" she asked. "Why? I read all your files." "Of course," he answered smoothly. "I read yours too. Young man, you're quite the artist, aren't you?" I felt a jolt of surprise. How could he know that? I like to doodle. Sure, but no teacher had ever mentioned it. "Well," he said, "why don't we head inside?" "The door's locked," I began, but he only reached out, nudged it lightly, and the handle gave way as if it had never been stuck at all. The doors creaked open into the hallway. Clara shot me a worried glance, but I followed him in. Instantly, something felt wrong. The moment we stepped across the threshold, the air grew colder. Though outside the sun had shone brightly, the hallway looked dim, as if dusk had fallen. The walls glistened with moisture, like condensation on a glass of ice water. And most disturbing of all, silence. A school should be filled with noise, kids laughing, pencils scratching, chairs dragging. But there was nothing. Only the echo of Mr. Harlow's slow, steady footsteps. I told myself it was fine. Maybe we were late. Maybe the classrooms were already in session. But dread gnawed at me anyway. When we reached our classroom, hope flickered in my chest. If the kids were inside, maybe everything would be normal. But Mr. Harlow walked right past without glancing in. Sir," I stammered. "You missed the classroom." He turned and smiled at me, patient as a parent correcting a child. "Oh, we won't be using that room today. Follow me." He led us farther down the hall, until he stopped at the back wall. The locked steel door. My heart raced. It couldn't open. It never opened. But he gripped the handle, turned it, and the door swung wide without resistance. "Today," he said, "class will be held outside." Mist spilled through the opening, rolling across the threshold like smoke. Beyond it stretched a stone path, vanishing into gray haze. Excitement surged in me despite the fear. This was a mystery Clara and I had wondered about for months. The forbidden backyard. The secret world. "Come on," I whispered, tugging at her sleeve. But Clara grabbed my wrist, her knuckles white. "Don't." Her eyes were wide with terror. Still, curiosity won. Together, hand in hand, we stepped through the door. The mist surrounded us instantly, cool and damp. The only visible feature was the narrow path ahead, and the dark figure of Mr. Harlow walking calmly forward. We followed, footsteps crunching softly on stone. Shadows loomed on either side of the path, tall and narrow. At first I thought they were trees, but as the fog thinned, shapes emerged. White slabs, headstones. We were in a graveyard. The stones glowed as though freshly polished, each one pristine and blank. No names, no dates, just cold marble stretching in neat rows. Iron fences flanked us, and beyond them, the silhouettes of trees. Clara's grip tightened on my hand. "Where are the other kids?" she whispered. "You're the first to arrive." "Mr. Harlow said lightly. I didn't believe him, but I dared not argue. What is this place?" I asked. He turned to us, smiling with that same calm assurance. "This," he said, "is where I work." "But you're a teacher," Clara said, her voice trembling. "I never said that was all I was." He replied. Something about the way he said it froze me inside. His voice was warm, fatherly, comforting, and yet every word felt like a trap. Clara pointed to the stones. "Why don't they have names?" He glanced around. "Why should they? They know who they are." And then, as if cued by his words, the air shifted. I blinked and suddenly every headstone was occupied. Figures sat hunched atop them, curled like fetuses, pale and hairless. Their skin was white as the marble beneath them, their faces smooth and featureless. Dozens of them, silent, still, watching without eyes. I stumbled backward, tripping over the path. My stomach twisted, bile rising in my throat. "Mr. Harlow's voice drifted over me, calm and steady. "Don't be afraid. They can't harm you. They only want peace." But then his expression hardened, and he added, "My other duty is to make sure no one disturbs them." He stepped aside, revealing a trail of dark crimson smeared across the stones. Blood. It stretched ahead, winding behind a tall tree. "Go on," he urged, gesturing. "See for yourselves." My body screamed to run, but his gaze held me captive. With Clara trembling beside me, I forced myself forward. The blood led us behind the tree, and there we saw them. Two massive slabs of flesh, torn and discarded, feathers matted with gore. Wings, enormous wings, severed from whatever creature had borne them. My throat closed. Tears stung my eyes. "What did you do?" I whispered. A breath brushed my ear, though no one stood close. "Look behind you." I turned and wished I hadn't. A tree towered there, and upon it a man was nailed, his arms stretched wide, pinned to branches like a grotesque crucifix. His body sagged, draped in white cloth soaked through with blood. His face bore a rictus of agony. Frozen forever. I screamed. Clara screamed. My chest heaved. My mind begged for escape. And then fingers like iron clamped the back of my neck. "Don't be afraid," whispered Mr. Harlow. "Close your eyes, and it will be over." Pain seared where his grip dug into me. Darkness swirled at the edges of my vision. My screams echoed until they broke into sobs. Then silence. "Han, I've got the key." Light exploded as the door burst open. Arms pulled me upright. It was my mother. I was on the floor of a supply closet, surrounded by brooms and mops. Clara lay limp in my arms, stirring weakly. Behind my mother stood a young woman with cropped red hair. "I'm your substitute," the woman said gently. "Ms. Turner." I staggered out into the hall, gasping, eyes darting to the door. It was the very same door at the back wall. Only now, it opened to nothing but shelves and cleaning supplies. My mother shook her head. "We've been looking for you for an hour. What on earth were you doing in here?" But I couldn't answer. My mind spun, trying to reconcile the graveyard, the faceless creatures, the blood-soaked man, with the dusty closet before me. "Mr. Harlow," I whispered. "Who?" "Ms. Turner asked, brows furrowed. The name meant nothing to her. Was it a dream? A hallucination? Some shared fantasy between children? Maybe. Maybe not. That night, back at home, my mother frowned as she tucked me in. "Honey," she said softly, "what's that bruise on the back of your neck?" My heart stopped, because even if the door was only a closet now, even if no one else remembered the man in black, his handprint was still on me. That was decades ago, yet it lives inside me still. I've often wondered if everything that happens is meant to teach us something. If so, what lesson was hidden in that graveyard? Was it about the fragility of life? The cruelty that exists in silence? Or was it simply a reminder that evil doesn't always come with claws and teeth? Sometimes it smiles, calm and polite, while it places its hand on your neck. Whatever it was, I know one thing: the lesson is not finished. And that's why I tell you this story now. Because maybe, just maybe, some doors should stay locked.